Super excited to have this opportunity to share Capstone with everyone. It is a fantastic solution for schools and very timely with the digital learning grant opportunity available, and just thankful that Andrea is here to share, because obviously you're the expert on what you have to offer, and thankful for the opportunity to really be able to leverage that ESC of I and get the great best pricing possible for our member districts. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Christy, and thank you, Lena. I really appreciate the chance to be here with you all and talk about something that is super timely. Lena and Christy, mostly Christy and I, and some bid and contract teams just worked out that partnership. And so we do have a negotiated discount for ESC members, and that applies all over the state. And so if you decide that this fits into your digital learning grant, you will get a very competitive price on this digital content. And so what we're going to do today, I'll start sharing my screen and get my slideshow up. What we're going to do today is talk a little bit about the digital learning grant in specific. We're also going to do a really good overview of what is the PebbleGo universe and what is it really useful for in terms of both distance learning and blended learning, and of course in person as well. And so how does that apply to this particular grant is in the areas of technology integration, in the areas of professional learning, and also in the areas of technology assisted content. So PebbleGo has a lot of features built in that we're going to dive into why those are important and why that sort of accessibility is really important when you consider content for elementary students. So before we get started, I'll just give you a little intro on me. I work with Capstone. I've been the Indiana rep for a little over 2 years. I've been with Capstone as a rep for 8 years. And so I love working with schools and districts. I do provide some professional development on how to use our products with best practices. And so we'll get into that a little more later. But at Capstone, just in case you don't know who Capstone is, we are a publisher. We publish content in book format. We publish content in digital format. And we are pretty much the premier digital learning space for kids in terms of content. So for research databases, inquiry-based discovery, PebbleGo is pretty much the most popular one for that K-3 space. And so you'll see why as we go throughout this presentation. But this is who Capstone is. We do provide those content places that align to best practice education standards, including Indiana's standards. So I'm going to have you, if you're comfortable, go ahead and unmute, and we'll do a little bit of introduction. So we're going to have everybody introduce themselves, tell their name, position, and district, what brought you to this session, and what do you hope to learn. And Tim, I see you've successfully unmuted. Do you mind if I call on you first?
No, that'd be fine. Tim Arnold from Richmond Community Schools. I'm a district e-learning specialist. And we're here we're considering applying for the grant. And so we want to take every opportunity to find out as much information about applying and programs that will connect to us being successful if selected for the grant. So we're just here to listen and learn.
Perfect. All right. Sheila Hobbs, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm just here because Tim Arnold invited me. I'm Sheila Hobbs. I'm the Director of Exceptional Education with Richmond Community Schools. So.
Perfect. Well, thanks for being here, Sheila. Max, do you want to go next?
Yes, I'm Max Smith. I'm also a district e-learning specialist, and I'm also here because I was invited.
Perfect. Linda Williams, would you mind unmuting and introduce yourself? There should be a little unmute button that looks like a microphone. And while you look for it, I might call on Susan next. Susan, do you want to unmute and introduce yourself?
Good morning. My name is Susan Sawyer. I'm from Anderson Community Schools. I just read my email and I said, whoa, this is something that we may want to look into. And I don't have a high position, but I'm just interested in learning all I can, especially when it comes to helping our students.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm glad that you're here, and this session will be recorded, Susan. So as you figure out how that might apply to your school system, feel free to share that recording with other, other professionals within your school district and see how that might fit in. Denise, would you mind unmuting and introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm Denise Cordray with the Hanover Community School Corporation. I'm the Director of Grants and Assessment, and we, like Tim, are looking at applying for the grant, and we're on information gathering. So that's why I'm here.
Perfect. All right. Tim Davis, I'll call on you next.
Tim Davis, John Glenn School Corporation, Director of Learning. I'm also here to gather information for the DLG.
Perfect. And Michelle Voorhees. If you're able to unmute, just find the little microphone button and unmute yourself. And if not, feel free to use the chat function as well. You can put things in the chat. And now I see that we have some chats. Michelle does not have a microphone. Thank you for sharing that in the chat, Michelle. I appreciate it. All right, so we're going to get started here. Hopefully you will find some really great information about this digital learning grant. I'm going to make a little caveat. PebbleGo and the digital tools we're going to look at today absolutely fit within the scope of the digital learning grant, but I am by no means the expert about the digital learning grant on my own. I know that ESC professionals are willing to help you with this application process as well. And there's a lot of information I can pass along to you. But I'm just going to talk about kind of how Capstone materials might fit into what you would like to do with the grant. So today we're going to talk a little bit about discussing universal design for learning and the focus of the grant. So if I had to describe universal design for learning, it is basically the concept that when you design an education program and a learning program that works for students of diverse abilities, diverse backgrounds, diverse modes of learning, visual, tactile learners, all of these different kinds of learners, you end up with a learning system that is actually more effective for every learner, not just the ones that need special accommodations. And so we're going to talk today about Section 508, and WCAG 2.0. These are accessibility standards that do apply to online content, and they make sure that the content that you are having children access is actually up to the latest standards of accessibility. So things like there are voice text-to-speech kind of features, and things like it might be accessible in a different language. There are a lot of different features that go into this, and it's really a long process to make sure that your digital content is addressing all of those standards. So today we're going to talk about how PebbleGo offers those accessibility features, and then we're going to demonstrate PebbleGo and Capstone Connect and show you how we can really reduce a lot of the time and planning for your teachers and help them become more effective, because we're saving them a lot of search time so they can find content that is accessible to their students and is aligned to their state standards and will actually work as digital content for their students to interact with. So the Digital Learning Grant is open now, and it closes on Wednesday, March 16th at 5 p.m. So it is a pretty short turnaround. It is designed to continue the process of, working into new ways of teaching, building teacher capacity, and also working on issues of accessibility. And so all of those three strands are things that Capstone can definitely partner with your district on. And so we're going to kind of start with the content piece, like the technology tools that are accessible, and then we'll move into some of the other professional learning afterwards. And Lena, at this point, it would be really great to, I know you have done a lot of work and thinking about universal design for learning and how important that is. Can you speak a little bit to that and why that's important?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Yes, UDL is the acronym that gets thrown around a lot, but sometimes it it's hard to encapsulate, but really if you think about providing choice and access to how students can take in the learning, demonstrate their learning, and then interact with the learning, it's really those components. So when we're providing choice where students could listen or read or have a graphic representation or hear things in another language, then we're providing choice for all learners. I know that I'm an audiobook listener. As a librarian, I read hundreds of books a year, and most of them are audiobooks. And that's because I'm a very auditory learner. I love to listen into that. And so for me, it makes it a lot easier if I can have my content out loud. And my son is a very visual learner, so he needs things with lots of graphics and pictures and ways that he can interact with content that makes it more contextual for him and really concrete, and those visuals do that. So those are the kinds of considerations that we look at when we're building lessons, and we do it as teachers pretty innately. Like, we are good at providing options and choice. UDL just gives us a framework for the check marking that we're thinking about all those other pieces that we might not naturally think about. So that would be my 10,000 foot overview of UDL.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I know that actually Keep Indiana Learning has some resources that are on demand. So you can learn a little bit more about UDL and the process of why that's helpful as far as instructional design. And you can kind of go to their sources as well. So let's start off here with the idea of access. And so when we talk about digital content that is accessible to students, there are a lot of ways in which access comes into play, especially for youngest students in elementary grades. So what we're trying to do with our content is remove the barriers to blended and distance learning with accessible digital content. So where digital barriers tend to arise, so every school has a good collection of books. Most schools have textbooks, most schools have these things that students are used to interacting with in the physical realm. But when we think about digital content, it's a whole different ballgame. So we need to think about, like, how does this content address the needs of low-level readers, ELL students, emerging readers? How difficult, this is a huge issue, how difficult is it to log into the content? Can a kindergartner do it? That's an important point when you're thinking about your digital content and having an accessible thing. Can students read on any device or only some devices? Is the content accessible to multiple readers at once? So if you think about an ebook that you might check out from an Overdrive system or a public library system, usually you have to have a copy of each of those books for each student to access. And so when you start talking about resourcing an elementary school with digital content, you want that content to be accessible by all of the students in the third grade all at the same time. And then, is there natural human voice read aloud, or is it kind of a weirdly awkward computer voice reading? Educationally, that natural human voice audio is way better in terms of increasing comprehension. Studies consistently show that students can comprehend and work with information at least 2 grade levels above their independent reading skill, which is important when you're thinking about those underserved populations and the populations that have suffered the most sort of learning loss from this pandemic, right? We want them to be able to interact with their on-grade level content in a way that is scaffolded for them so that they can actually engage with the ideas and the understanding of it. Can all students access this from home or school? Is the content inclusive? Is there representation of your student population? You know, are they able to find themselves in that content? And then, does the digital content meet Section 508 requirements and accessibility standards? So we're going to start here with a quick overview of PebbleGo. I'm just not starting from the assumption that any of you know anything about PebbleGo and what it is. So this is a little 5-minute video we're going to watch together, and it'll show you some of the accessibility features. It'll show you some of the student experience as students log into PebbleGo. And then we'll talk a little bit about those accessibility features that you saw.
Hello, and Welcome to PebbleGo by Capstone, the go-to hub for early literacy and inquiry for K-3 students. PebbleGo sparks curiosity in young learners with hundreds of curriculum-connected nonfiction articles that span core subject areas and interests. Every article is full of vibrant, realistic images, age-appropriate facts, and literacy supports like natural read-along audio and videos that keep kids engaged and make learning fun. PebbleGo also includes ready-made activities and other great resources to support educators. Let's take a quick tour of PebbleGo, where your students' exploration and fact-finding begins. On the home screen page, you will see every module your school subscribes to. Students can find the article they are looking for in one of two ways: the search bar or visual navigation. For example, if students need to write a report on frogs, they can type frogs into the search bar or just click through the categories to find the article. Each PebbleGo article has 5 slides of content with consistent structure. This makes it simple for even your youngest students to find and understand the information. PebbleGo encourages literacy for all kids. The read-along audio and highlighting feature can be especially helpful for your struggling readers. Professional voice artists read at a slow and steady pace. Glossary words throughout the article are a different color, so kids know to click on them. The glossary words also have the audio and highlighting feature. Each article also suggests 2 related articles, so kids can continue learning about related topics. For example, the frogs article links to about amphibians and wetland animals. The buttons below the article provide more options to promote learning and exploring. The citation button helps kids to become familiar with citing their sources. If they'd like to share the article, they can click on the article button, which brings up a PDF they can download or print. Each article also has at least one activity, a worksheet called Share What You Know. In this activity, kids can draw a picture, choose their favorite aspect about the topic, or group facts by category. Many articles have additional activities to engage students in a variety of ways. Most articles in PebbleGo have accompanying video and/or audio on the topic. For example, in the thunderstorms article, kids can see lightning and listen to thunder. There are 2 special features you've likely noticed, one for each animals article and one connected to each biographies article. Every animals article includes a range map to help students identify where that specific animal could be found on Earth. This helps students develop spatial thinking and visual literacy. Every biographies article has a timeline to provide students comprehension support for chronological events related to a specific person's life. Each PebbleGo module has 6 games based on the content in the module. For example, in multi-match, kids use critical thinking to create pairs based on the given topic. In Word Scramble, spelling and word recognition come into play as kids try to figure out the answer with the help of a clue. A fun social activity in PebbleGo is Question of the Day. Kids can take a poll about a fun topic and see how their response compares to other students. A new question appears each day. PebbleGo also offers all 5 modules in Spanish. These can be an especially useful tool for ELL students. Kids can toggle between the English and Spanish versions of an article with the click of a button. The Spanish text also has audio and highlighting so students can follow along. In the videos, Spanish transcripts accompany the video dialogue. Take the next step with PebbleGo Next. Designed for students who are ready to take their reading and research to the next level, PebbleGo Next engages your 3rd through 5th graders with hundreds of in-depth curriculum-connected articles. Students will discover age-appropriate critical thinking questions that encourage reflection and connection with each subject as well. Looking for an easy way to share PebbleGo and PebbleGo Next articles with your students? With just one click, teachers can copy a link to any article that can be placed within a lesson or EdTech tool of their choice, providing students with direct access to that article. No need to remember another username and password. One click and they're in. Visit PebbleGo.com for more free resources to help you get the most out of your PebbleGo subscription. There you'll find lesson plans, activities, posters, and much, much more. I hope you've enjoyed your quick tour of PebbleGo. It's easy to see how every piece, from the content to the navigation, has been thoughtfully designed to help K-3 students develop an appreciation for how to find credible facts and develop critical thinking skills. From all of us at Capstone, thanks for watching. Hello and welcome.
All right, I'm going to pop back in here, and I'm going to highlight some of the accessibility features that you would have seen demonstrated in that short little video. So here are the things that are important to consider when you're thinking about digital content. You want to have simple, intuitive, and predictable navigation. You want to have color contrast design to support students with color blindness and low vision. You want to have text to speech. As you can hear, it's not a computer program that is, designed to, kind of read as best you can, but it is really embedded right within PebbleGo content. So you have that natural human voice read aloud for scaffolding for your students that need that extra support, and for students that have that different method of taking in information like Lena talked about. Spanish language is there for all the K-2 content. And then alternative text and descriptive titles for meaningful images, transcripts for all videos, screen reader support, and then access keys for keyboard only navigation. So this is really important because we built the PebbleGo platform to work seamlessly with all of those assisted devices. And not every piece of content that you will find out there that is educationally appropriate for elementary students is actually very compatible with those screen reader assisted technology. And so that's kind of where this grant comes in, is that it is something that you can use with students with disabilities very seamlessly. So there was the basic view of PebbleGo, but since that video, we have added quite a bit of functionality to PebbleGo. So I'm going to do a quick little run through of this video, which talks a little bit more about our new student creation tool, which is designed for assessment. It's not like a summative assessment. It could be if you used it that way, but it's more of a formative assessment where students can share their understanding in all kinds of different modes and ways, so that teachers can really kind of check in and see what their comprehension is along as they're working within that PebbleGo universe. So this is what PebbleGo Create adds for you. Sometimes I feel like I should do a little spinning dance. Let's try this again. There we go.
Kids are curious, very curious. And that's why kids love PebbleGo. An interactive curricular content hub specifically designed to fuel curiosity in K-3 students, PebbleGo has been trusted by educators for well over a decade. With more than 1,500 engaging articles and supporting multimedia, PebbleGo inspires self-directed learning while building foundational reading and research skills. And PebbleGo is continually adding new content and features, like PebbleGo Spanish for English language learners and dual language development that lets students bounce between English and Spanish at the tap of a button.
El Agustina tenía un cuello largo.
And for upper elementary students, there's PebbleGo Next, which offers hundreds of more in-depth articles that align with state and national standards and provide tiered instructional supports to help every student at any level. And now introducing PebbleGo Create, a new tool that's just as much for teachers as it is for students. PebbleGo Create taps into kids' creativity, giving them intuitive tools to show and tell what they've been learning from any article in PebbleGo or PebbleGo Next. This hands-on active learning can help students retain even more essential concepts key to academic success, while also allowing teachers direct access to their students' work, gaining real-time insights on their progress. With PebbleGo, PebbleGo Next, and PebbleGo Create, you have rich resources for every elementary student and powerful tools for teachers to assess their learning. PebbleGo, empowering educators, encouraging kids to explore. Learn more today at pebblego.com.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing here briefly so we can have a quick discussion about inquiry-based learning and curiosity-based learning. So one of the big standards within the Indiana's instruction for blended and online education, there's educator standards that have been put together for blended and online education. One of the big core concepts within that is inquiry and discovery and curiosity in students. And so PebbleGo is really designed as an inquiry tool. It's designed for students to be able to search for and find and learn in pathways that really are meaningful to them, modes that are meaningful to them, and with accessibility features that allow all students to be able to interact with that information. And it's designed to really be the content that they need to access in a digital format that is educationally appropriate, tied to Indiana state standards, and actually assignable too by teachers. So we're going to get into a live view of a PebbleGo subscription that has Capstone Connect enabled. But before I do that, what kinds of things did you notice as we went through that content? Maybe you noticed a feature that seems really useful in your school's context, or would really meet the needs of your students. Do any of you have a good sized Spanish speaking population that you're working with?
Richmond does.
Richmond does. Okay. That's great to know. And so what kind of challenges come up as you're like working with students who's, for whom English is their second language, or maybe their parents are not fluent in English?
I speak from a district perspective, so I'm not sure what the teachers are actually seeing in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So I think part of it is just accessibility to things quickly. It's
Mm-hmm.
passing through programs to different programs. So when I think of technology, they live in silos, whether it's English or whether it's Spanish or whatever. We have some other languages as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I might chime in and say that for us, we have so many parallel platforms and programs going on that accessibility across that broad spectrum of what we offer is often difficult for us.
Yep. Yep, I hear you. So Spanish is the only language that is supported fully within PebbleGo, but that natural read aloud audio is also key to any English language learning situation. In terms of students being able to progress independently and be able to continue to grow their language skills, that real human doing the read aloud is a key feature to students really interacting with that content in a way that is going to help them be successful. Does anyone else have a comment about things that they saw within PebbleGo that they're thinking, oh gosh, that feature would be nice to have? Or I could see, maybe you could think of a group of teachers that would really lob on to being able to teach with this kind of content. Or if you have another comment that doesn't relate to my question, feel free to jump into before we get into the kind of the teacher utility and building that teacher capacity? Susan, I see your question about all three departments. I'm not sure. Do you mean all three elements like PebbleGo, PebbleGo Next, and Capstone Create? Is that okay? Yes. No, you don't have to. Any of these pieces are available as standalones, and then you can also add to it in that PebbleGo universe so that all things kind of pull in. Any other questions you can throw in the chat? Otherwise, we'll move on to the teacher experience. And I'll show you sort of what the full in Capstone Connect experience can be. Is there a time limit for students to use? That's a great question. Unlike other things, no. So PebbleGo is licensed for unlimited simultaneous use from any location for all students and staff. And so our pricing is basically by school building. It's an elementary resource, so we don't count the middle schools and high schools, but they can use it if it's a district-wide subscription. They can use it with the students for whom it would be appropriate. So anytime, any location, and we try to make it very easy for students to access. I'll leave just a moment for any other questions. Okay, then we're going to pop into a live demonstration of what it would look like to have Capstone Connect added onto a PebbleGo subscription. All right, so Capstone Connect, I'm just going to leave my screen minimized here, but it is a direct path to discover curriculum, connected content, and standards for your entire school. So far, we've been looking at PebbleGo, the database, and all the kind of add-on tools that are available in there. But we also have a whole library of e-content that is specifically aligned and designed to be used to help students reach standards. And so that format is called a Capstone Interactive ebook. And they have a lot of the same features as PebbleGo. They read aloud with real human voice audio, again, simultaneous use for every student and staff member from anywhere 24/7. And they are really fantastic resources to quickly discover content that is appropriate for every student that you're working with. If they need a different reading level, if they need a different format to interact with this knowledge. So you can go both up and down in reading level and complexity of text as you're working with your students. So I know one of our participants works with exceptional learners, right? So learners who are above grade level and need that extra challenge. And this tool is a fantastic resource that will help teachers quickly find resources for those students to interact with. So I'm going to jump right over here. This is the PebbleGo landing page. It's just at PebbleGo.com. This is a great resource as you kind of investigate further into PebbleGo and see whether it's a good fit for your school. You will find all kinds of information here, including information on Capstone Connect and PebbleGo Create. I'm going to jump over here to a logged in version, and I'm going to make sure that I'm still logged in here. Yes, I am. Okay. So this is what a PebbleGo Next looks like as far as a student view. But if you have the Capstone Connect version of PebbleGo enabled, you can also access over 3,500 Capstone Interactive ebooks that align to state and national standards. And they work very similarly to a PebbleGo article. If I was reading this, Horse's View of the World book, I could play this book and it can play on any kind of device, mobile device, computer, laptop, Chromebook, whatever you have in an internet connected device. This can play on anything. So I'm going to just pull this up so you can see, if you're familiar with e-content, You can kind of see right away how different this experience is from a non-read aloud ebook. So I'll just pull that up for us.
Let's hear it for horses. Clop, clop, clop. Our hooves have been around a long time. Horses lived at least 50 million years before the first humans. We became domestic 5,000 years ago. Today, we continue to be side by side with people.
All right, so I'm going to stop sharing there. So that's the student view, but let's go back to the teacher tools here so we can see what a teacher can have access to with PebbleGo or with Capstone Create enabled. So I'm going to go to the search by standards or title area. And we're going over to the teaching tools. So say I am a first grade teacher, and I know that we want to cover some of those social emotional learning skills. And so I'm really interested in seeing what kind of support that we have for those skills within this PebbleGo universe. So all I have to do is search by standards. I can search by, by Indiana standards, or I can go to national standards like the Castle standards over here. I can search by college, career, and ready civic life framework for social studies. But let's just stick right now to the Indiana standards. And I'm wanting to look at social and emotional learning. And then I want to look at first grade. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click first grade, and it's going to bring up the Indiana standards. And then I just decide what standard that I'm kind of working towards. So maybe I'm working on sensory motor integration, right? So I can click that, and it will search a federated search across all of the content that I could use to teach to this standard. And in this case, you'll bring up a whole bunch of PebbleGo articles like I feel angry or I feel calm, different articles that relate to that. Now, if I decide this is something that I would like to make available to students, at this point, I can preview this article. I can see whether it's appropriate. I can copy the link to this article, and I can insert this into any learning management system that I am using. It could be Canvas, it could be Google Classroom, it could be Seesaw, whatever method or learning management system that I'm using to communicate, the assignment, the experience that I want these students to have with them. I can put that link right in there, and it is an authenticated link. So all students have to do to open it is just click on it. So that authenticated link will take them right to that article. In that article, they have activities. So I could do a number of different things with this article, or, I could share what I know. I could do some research. I could kind of engage with a discussion. Maybe I partner them up. There are some questions for understanding that relate to ELA standards in here. I could have them share what they know. I could do an activity that's more of a hands-on learning activity with this article. I'm going to pull this over into the right screen. So here is one of these activities, which is making a calm down jar, right? So what does your body do when you're angry? It's important to learn ways to calm your body. Make a calm down jar to help you keep your cool when you're feeling angry. So this is something that I could do with a group of students or a student that needed some extra support in those Castle standards and managing their emotions. A counselor might do this, a specific classroom teacher might do this with a student. But this really helps them, give them those skills that are included in those standards, right? So that's one example. Now, let's say I just wanted to figure out what kind of resources are there because I'm a fifth grade teacher and I need to teach about the American Revolution. So I could go through the standards search, or I could go through the title search. And I'm just going to type in revolution. And it will search across all of the different content that's available within PebbleGo and within that ebook collection. So now I can look that I can see I have a fiction book here that I could use. So like a historical fiction read. I have lesson plans that relate to that. I have nonfiction books that I could read. I have lesson plans that relate to those, and I have PebbleGo Next articles that would relate to that. Now, if I wanted to differentiate a little bit, let's say I only want to look at ebooks and I want to stick to a certain, Fontes and Pinello guided reading level, or I wanted to stick to a certain Lexile level, I can then tailor this so that I'm only looking at the materials that are appropriate for my students that I want to work with. So now we're down to ebooks that are between those Lexile ranges. Again, all the same tools. I can find out a little bit more about this. I can see that there's a lesson plan that deals with literacy skills and also deals with like social studies concepts that is available for this ebook. And just within less than a minute, I have what I need to be able to plan some really good content experiences for my students and have the confidence that all of those are going to have that feature of read aloud. It's going to have that thoughtful design put within it so that there are multiple pathways to engage with that information. So now is a good time for us to pause a minute and just kind of talk about questions. What kinds of content have you all engaged with in terms of your blended learning environments? Like, what kinds of content needs have come up as you've been looking at those things from an elementary perspective specifically? I'll stop sharing so you guys can see yourselves, but feel free to unmute or put something in the chat, either one.
Good morning. I was just wondering, are all the articles that are selected, were they handpicked by Capstone themselves? Because yes. I'm looking at, usually when you put in a search for something, I'm a librarian. And so when you put in a search for like one word that you did, like revolution, everything that had revolution in the title would have came up. And so I'm kind of curious, how did it know that you were looking for revolution as in Revolutionary War or as in revolution someplace else? Some other type.
That's a good question. You could search either way if you wanted to. All of the content, there are over 3,500 ebook titles that are specifically chosen to reach standards. And then there are, somewhere north of 1,500 PebbleGo and PebbleGo Next articles. And so what it's searching through is the content that has been specifically chosen to align to those standards that is included in this. I guess you might call it like a library of educationally appropriate texts, both in article format and also in ebook format. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yes. But I also wondered, you don't have like kind of leisurely reading, like popular fiction books or exciting nonfiction books that you would see basically at Scholastic or some other place. It's just basically educational books.
We do have some fiction reading and some enjoyment reading and student choice reading. And students, of course, can choose any of that. This particular subscription is much more standards heavy. And so it does swing towards nonfiction because those are the things that we need to cover. But Capstone also produces a lot of fiction that is also available. So when you're talking about like looking for a fun reading library, that is more of something where you would purchase like a number of titles that fit your students' interests and sort of like building a library collection. So those titles are available. They're just for purchase. And this is like part of that overarching subscription. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. What other questions come up for everyone? All right, well, let's pop back into my presentation because I just wanted to talk briefly about how this kind of content, digital content, would fit into the scope of the digital learning grant. So let me share my screen again. And we'll pop into this digital learning slide. So under the digital learning grant, schools can apply for a wide range of things that relate to 3 strands. So the first strand is professional learning on blended and online learning best practices. So that includes like, how do we best integrate technology into instruction, and how do we choose digital content? How do we, what strategies do we use to create a really great learning experience for students? Strand 2 is specific to universal design for learning, and it's designed to kind of do that professional learning and professional capacity building for your instructors. And then strand 3 relates specifically to assistive technology. So that would be where, the PebbleGo universe of content would just very much fit straight under that one, regardless of what professional learning capacity that you want to include. So PebbleGo always comes with at least one professional learning session for your staff. And so that is provided by me. It is included in the cost of a subscription. If you are looking at the PebbleGo, the Capstone Create version, the teacher tools and the lesson plans and the search capacity by standards, we actually have a couple of options for professional learning. So we have a professional learning that is paid, that is really designed to increase your teacher capacity in terms of universal design for learning and how to incorporate, design, your educational lesson design into that. And then we also have an included kind of, here's how to use Capstone Connect. So that is included. The professional learning that's paid is a lot more in depth, and it can take various formats depending on the package that would be a fit for your school district as you're trying to roll this out. So that's how that fits into that digital learning grant. I would be very happy to talk further with you about different levels of packages that might be included in your grant application, and how that would really make a difference for you building that teacher capacity and having some tools with those accessibility features already built into them. Does anyone else have any further questions before we log off here, or any comments? You can throw them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. I think Lena put in the chat that you can receive a certificate for joining in with us today. All right, well, thanks everybody. I'm going to put my contact information up here at the end. Please feel free to reach out if you have further questions, or if you would like to discuss further, a plan of action to include some of these resources in your grant application.
And I'm happy to stay on too if anyone has any general grant questions. I've talked to Diana Smith, formerly Gill, at the DOE a little bit about this, and Alicia Four, just to get a view of what the grant is looking for and what they are looking for. So I can stay on if anyone has any general questions about the grant. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Andrea, it was really great to hear about everything. The Bunsey connection is so stinking cool. It
is pretty cool. Yeah, because students can demonstrate their learning in all kinds of ways, things that we use like other tools for, like Flipgrid, or, they can record themselves sharing what they learned. They could do their own writing and then record their voice reading it. So they could create an ebook experience as one of their projects. It's just pretty endless what students can do with that tool. It's pretty great.
I love it. And we will put the recording of this on our YouTube channel as part of our partnership playlist. We have a live stream event on Monday. If anyone would like to join us on our YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter channels, we'll be live streaming little mini demos of some other partnership tools and products and services that will fit into the DLG. And again, if you would like to reach out to me directly through email, if you'd like a quick free Zoom chat about planning, we are just here to help and support you as you are trying to implement that technology-rich environment after the pandemic. What does our new future look like? I'm all about those conversations.
All right.
All right, well, if anybody needs me, you've got my email addresses in the chat. And other than that, I think we are wrapping up for today. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thanks everyone.